to Plain Speaking, a voice for the Democratic Party. Welcome to our panel, and we will get to the issues very quickly, but I want to, again, introduce the panel. Many of them have been here many times, so you don't have to worry. To my immediate left, and she loves that term, as we all do, the current chair of the Blair County Democratic Committee, Gillian Kratzer, and to the opposite of left, on the other side, to the far other side, is Marsha Hunter, who's been here quite often and is a very strong Democratic supporter, and of course Tom Patterson sitting to her left. Tom has been a very good supporter of our party, as well as being the treasurer of the party, and Marsha is a vice chair of the party. And I guess I should say I'm on the committee too, and I'm with the state committee. Okay, and our party chair is coming this weekend to our dinner, and we should mention that again. I know it's too late to buy tickets probably, but we might be able to sneak in. We can make them salivate and say, boy, I wonder if I could get in there. So October 19th is our annual banquet out at the casino, beginning at 5:30. And Gillian, as the chair, says she might just be able to squeeze somebody else in. So if you know somebody who wants to come out, got a great lineup. Jim Byrne, our state chairman, Alana Hartsock, who's going to go out there and beat the pants off of Bill Schuster. And then we have Mike Morrell, who is the chair of the Pennsylvania Progressives.
The executive director of Keystone Progress.
Keystone Progress. I get Progressives and Progress. Well, thank you very much.
Don't forget.
And our Lieutenant Governor candidate, who just confirmed, Mike Stack. So we've got some powerhouse speakers, and really, truly come out and share the Democratic ideals and vote. We're going to talk more about that near the end of the program. Right now we're going to talk about the campaigns that are most important to us here in the central Pennsylvania and in Blair County, and those are of governor. We've got to get a Democrat in there, and I think we have a good chance. And then once Gillian gets finished with spearheading the discussion of the Wolf campaign, we will go to Marsha for a little bit of encouragement on the Hartsock campaign.
So the Wolf campaign is sort of flowing along just as well as it has been. You know, we've had 3 debates now, and after the first debate, most people would have agreed that Corbett won that debate. Wolf came out of it up 15 points. The second debate was definitely Tom Wolf, and he came out of it 15 points ahead. And the third debate was kind of a tie, and he came out of that 15 points ahead.
Well.
So, I mean, it's been pretty steady. You know, there have been a few outlier polls that have made it a little closer, and I would suggest that it's fairly likely that, you know, in the end, the margin is only as big as the number of voters that come out. You know, I mean, it's great to say that the polls have us ahead, and they certainly do, but if people don't actually go out and vote, then, you know, that can't happen. You know, Republican support will firm up as we get closer and closer, although there are certainly Republicans that are unhappy enough with Corbett that I think that they'll vote for Wolf this time, especially because he's such a strong business candidate, which, you know, is something that we don't get to say very often, but it's absolutely true in this case, is that Tom Wolf is a person with, you know, excellent executive business leadership, and so I think that, you know, I think he's going to be our next governor.
Okay.
I feel comfortable saying that.
Comments from the panel? Anything encouraging here to say to get those votes out? Because
well, Tom Wolf has made it very clear that there are specific differences between him and our current Governor Corbett.
Absolutely.
One is he is very strong about trying to shift the tax burden from middle-class families to the higher wage earners in the state. He's for the Medicaid expansion, which the American Medical Association and most physicians and nurses and people in the medical profession are very strong advocates of, because it would save so much money in the state budget. There would be so much more money coming to the state of Pennsylvania if there was the Medicaid expansion. Tom Wolf wants to increase public school spending by $1 billion to try to make up for the cuts that Corbett has done during his regime. Okay, Wolf supports raising the minimum wage in Pennsylvania. Wolf is very pro-union, where Corbett is very anti-union. Corbett is all about this paycheck protection and having open shops and things that are really detrimental to the average worker in Pennsylvania. Corbett is against the public pensions. He wants all the public pensions to be switched to 401ks, which would very much be detrimental to most middle-class people in Pennsylvania.
Well, you see what's happening on the national level with the stock market. As of yesterday, I was listening this morning, one of the financial analysts was saying that in one day yesterday there was a fluctuation of 900 points before it finally settled at a minus 100 or 260 or something. And that's what really impacts the 401ks, because that money is usually invested in all kinds of stocks. So you can't be taking a guaranteed pension away from people to put it into a questionable process of investing.
Well, and of course that affects it affects everybody that's in a 401k, but it especially affects the 25% of people in Pennsylvania that are over 25, that are over 65. 25% of our population is elderly in the state of Pennsylvania, and so if you mess around with these things and you force people to be in 401ks and in the stock market, you're going to have more of a riskier return, and there'll be more people that are elderly that are going to, possibly slip into poverty and all kinds of different things.
And I want to mention one other thing about these pension plans. If you recall recently, or within the last month or so, or 2 months, that the Congress of the National Congress passed a $10.5 billion road bill. Well, in that bill, which Schuster voted for, was a provision that said any company that has a private pension plan can withhold payments into that pension plan for 10 years as long as they put the money into to cover the cost of the highway plan. So what they did was to gamble on the future of the pension plans in the private sector.
Right.
I mean, they're already trying to decimate the defined benefit plans of governmental employees. Now they're telling companies for 10 years, we will forgive you for not putting money into your pension plans.
Well, and once again, this doesn't hurt anybody but people in the middle class.
Right.
This just gives a bigger and bigger gap all the time between the 1% and everybody else. And it's really going to impact the entire country negatively if people don't go out and vote for their own social and economic interests. That's something that Elizabeth Warren has been very good at communicating, is the fact that it's not just an economic issue. It is morally reprehensible to put more and more people into poverty with these kinds of things where you take and take and take away things from the middle class. That's not the kind of country we want to be.
And I think Wolf has said it time and again how he's going to represent the middle class. He wants the people to be treated fairly. Don't steal. And that's what it is, stealing from the people who are least able to pay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the immoral part of this whole thing.
Right.
I mean, I think minimally Tom Corbett has shown that, whatever his policies may be, he's simply not been an effective leader. He's not worked well with the legislature. I mean, if you can't get your own policies passed when you have majorities in both houses, how can we expect you to get anything done at all? I mean, we're supposed to give you 4 more years on, hey, I'm going to make it work this time?
Yeah, well, to show you how unastute he really is, in the last budget that was passed, he line vetoed $50 million that goes to the members of the Senate and the General Assembly to run their part of government. And I mean, if you want to anger somebody, take away their ability to do what they're used to doing.
Right.
And I mean, if he's trying to mend fences, he's using a hacksaw. In my mind, I mean,
Absolutely.
Right, and we're in a big budget shortfall right now in Pennsylvania, and we've talked about this on the show several times, how Tom Wolf is for putting a 5% tax on the fracking.
Yes.
And that would not hurt the fracking companies whatsoever, since they're paying that type of, at least that amount of tax in other states where they're doing this fracking. Why not pay it in Pennsylvania and help the budget shortfall? And that is almost like a bipartisan issue at this point. A lot of people on the other side of the aisle see the sense of this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we're the only state not doing it.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're waiting for at this point.
Well, and I think, I think the reports that have been in the news within the past couple of months about this, in fact, the last year, is that the amount of money that these people are putting into the campaigns of people like Corbett and others deters them from voting for charging them to come to Pennsylvania and do their deed, whatever that may be.
Right.
Okay, anything else on the Corbett and Wolf race? Although we've got to say it again and again and again. Get out and vote. All the rhetoric in the world doesn't mean anything. Polls don't mean anything. It's getting out there, and we don't pull the lever anymore.
Press the button.
Press the button. But you've got to do it. Please, please get out and vote. And now we'll take a look at a race that really, truly should give us an opportunity to get rid of a person who has, in every fashion, been opposed to every single issue that impacts the average Pennsylvanian and the 9th Congressional District, and that's Bill Schuster. We have a candidate, Alana Hartzog, who's going to be at our dinner on October the 19th, and she has come up with a fantastic program to get out there and get the vote out and really, truly begin to represent the people in the 9th Congressional District.
Absolutely.
So do we have some statistics, some commentary on these two candidates that we might want to share with the viewers?
Well, as usual, it just amazes me how I don't even think a lot of people in our viewing area know that Alana Hartzog is running against Bill Schuster. In fact, there was a big press conference the other day about this bill. It's called the Saraceni Aviation Safety Act. And the reason the name is Saraceni on it is Saraceni is the widow of the pilot that was, overcome or whatever. It was flying the United Airlines that was flown then by terrorists into the South Tower of the World Trade Center. And the widows of the pilots in these planes are pushing this. They want this bill to come out of committee, and Schuster will not let this bill come out of committee. And what the bill basically does is to put a double reinforcement on planes, not enabling people to get into the cockpit during a flight. And to me, it just makes logical sense that this would be something for everyone's safety. This would be something that could prevent terrorism. Schuster won't even let it out of committee. And part of the reason is he's getting a lot of money from the airline industry. Of course, this is going to cost airline manufacturers money to do this.
I was at the press conference, and they had the figures on ticketed airline sales. If they would raise the price of each ticket to cover the second barrier door, they would add 1 penny to the price of an airline ticket. But the airlines are balking because they don't want to mandate anything, and they don't want the government to mandate the doors.
And I just noticed in this article that the total cost to the industry to do every airplane is $20 million. Now, you stop and think of the billions.
That's a drop in the bucket.
Right.
Compared to
the profits that the airlines have been making. They won't even serve food anymore. Well, you're lucky to get a peanut, a bag of peanuts,
Well, they said the 787 Boeings, the newest one, they said the cost of the entertainment system in the plane is $1 million, just for the entertainment system. And they said, that it just comes down to the fact that the airlines, not that they don't have the money to do it, they just don't want to do it because they're afraid they'll set a precedent. And he has the ability to bring it to a vote to require it. And they said it takes an accident to make a bill. And that's what they're pushing. These two pilots, and as a side note, one of the two at least are Republicans. So this wasn't Democrats going after Schuster. These were two concerned Republican women that tried to speak to him, and he just, I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
And
and I'd like to point out the article that Frank was looking at over there from the Altoona Mirror was on page 8 was on page 8 of the Altoona Mirror. To me, that is just unconscionable that you have a press conference like this about a safety issue this important, and all it warrants in the Altoona Mirror is page 8. And that's just very disheartening. It's just very disheartening that something this important is not thought of as important news. You know, this type of political wrangling and, you know, not trying to do what's really best for the people as a whole. And this isn't even an economic issue. This is a safety issue for all of us that fly. This is a safety issue.
And this is such a simple, real thing that can be done. I mean, beyond taking your shoes off in the airport, you know, this is a thing that would actually stop a person from getting into a cockpit. Whereas right now, you know, you have the cockpit door that's there, and then you would put the in-flight tray, the trolley that the stewardesses take around in front of the door, and that's going to stop somebody. You know, I mean, come on.
And now Schuster's against this, okay? He also has voted the Homeowners Flood Insurance Affordability Act. He was against that. Restoring $20.5 million of food stamp cuts. He was against that. He is co-sponsoring a bill to change overtime pay to comp time pay. It's called the Family Flexibility Act, so that you can have comp time and not require an employer to pay overtime.
Right, and they will force you to take comp time instead of
overtime. Right,
exactly.
Because if it's not required to pay someone overtime if they work over 40 hours a week, they'll end up just getting comp time through this bill.
And look
of
at how
course,
many,
this is pro-business, not pro-family.
Look at how many of these businesses, including schools and hospitals and so on, that are now, instead of hiring people, they're contracting them.
Yeah.
And because you are a contract employee and not working for the school system or the hospital or whatever it is, you are not qualified to participate in their benefit plans and or their salary plans.
Right.
And so therefore it's another attempt to suppress the people who are the least able to compete in society.
Well, this is where it comes back to get out the vote. The people that should be voting, the working people in this area at least, are the ones that don't vote. You know, anybody who works for a living should see this and want to get rid of the people that are behind these laws.
And look at veterans. Schuster voted against legislation that would extend long-term benefits for veterans.
Right.
How about all these folks coming back from this horrible mess in the Middle East, totally, almost dead? So many of them, you know, and all that we tried to do is provide care for them over an extended period of time, and Schuster votes against it.
Yes, he voted against that, too. He voted against funds for being used to fund climate change research. He prohibited some costs of he prohibited the social cost of carbon emissions from being used in environmental reviews. He voted for that, so that if you environmentally review the emissions from an industry, you can't count the carbon emissions, which is the main polluting force of emissions, you know, that kind of thing. He voted to pass a bill to limit the authority of the NLRB. I don't know, the National Labor Relations Board. I don't know if probably a lot of our viewing audience watched the Roosevelts. That's one of the things that FDR put in place to try to prevent this huge disparity between working people and owners of companies, so that you would have a recourse, that you wouldn't be at the mercy of the employers. And of course, Schuster wants to get rid of that.
He's voted against raising the minimum wage multiple times. And I mean, I think that again and again we hear, you know, these talking points about job creators, and that's all well and good, but the people that put money into the economy are people who make, you know, minimum wage. They're people. And if you make $7.25 an hour, you go up to $10.10 an hour, you're not stocking that all away in the bank. You have things that you need to spend money on. That money goes into your local economy, and that creates jobs.
That's the thing, right?
Well, they found there's been statistics. All the places, like, for example, the city of Seattle, I can't think of some of the other places recently where they have raised the minimum wage.
San Francisco.
It has really stimulated the local economy for the reason you're talking about right there, Gillian, that people had a little bit extra in their paychecks because of that, and they immediately went out and bought things that they had put off, therefore stimulating the entire economy.
That's what does it. Well, we're going to take our first break. We usually take 2 breaks during the show, but we'll be taking our first one now and give us a chance to regroup as we move on with our issues, because, believe me, there are a lot of them, but the biggest one still is vote. Vote, vote. Thank you. Take our break.
By teaming up with the Gloria Gates Memorial Foundation, the United Way supplies a safe place for local kids. They learn social and life skills that keep them out of trouble.
That's the big thing, is just get them to succeed.
With your help, the United Way can make a difference right here in Blair County.
We're all in it to help each other.
For more information, visit unitedwayofblaircounty.org.
Marsha, you sent us. We got an email about that? Okay, here we are back to plain speaking, and we can't say, I don't think, anything positive about the guy who's in the Congress representing the 9th Congressional District. Can the panel think of any one positive comment that we can make about Representative Bill Schuster in his job?
No.
Silence, folks. Doesn't it tell you something, those of you who are watching? And if you can think of a positive thing, my name's in the phone book. Give me a call and let me know. I mean that sincerely. What one thing that has Bill Schuster done for the citizens of the 9th Congressional District that is positive?
Well, he was at the ribbon cutting for one of the bridges that the Affordable Care Act paid, not the Affordable Care Act, the stimulus plan of President Obama paid for, that he voted against.
And that's another thing. How many times has he voted against the Affordable Care Act?
I can't even count.
At least 45 times. Every time that the...
It's like 50 at this point.
And what about all those folks out there who are getting subsidies under Medicaid to help them live? And here's a guy who's saying, die in the streets.
And there's such a disconnect between people who are really benefiting from the Affordable Care Act and Republicans right now that are running so hard against it. And this is not in our state, but I mean, just this past week, Mitch McConnell debated his Democratic opponent and was asked about Kentucky's state exchange. Now, Kentucky did the state exchange, and it's doing very well. And he said, I think it's great they have a website, but I would vote to repeal the Affordable Care Act.
Yes. Hundreds of thousands of people in those states.
How do you not understand that these two things are connected? Sort of, you can't take them apart.
These guys won't answer questions. Walker running for governor of Wisconsin again. He was asked point blank, would you support a raise in the minimum wage? And his comment, he refused to answer the question. He said, I would rather have jobs that would give people much more money to live on. And the guy said to him, well, would you vote then to raise the minimum wage? And he would not answer the question.
Well, I'll tell you what, if Scott Walker does get elected, the people in that state deserve what they get. Because when he originally was voted in, and a lot of union people voted for him. And then when he went and cut services for police, for firemen, and for teachers, they all ended up at the Capitol. Well, if they vote for him again, shame on them, is what I say.
See, the tragedy with that whole comment is, too, that there is the old saying, we get what we deserve. We get what we deserve by doing this. That only goes to the people who suffer. And many of us who vote against the issue suffer from it when it loses, so we don't deserve that. No. We are a consequence of the unreasonableness of the people who voted for an issue that diminishes Americans.
And we have a strongly anti-labor governor here.
Yes,
that,
indeed.
you know, we
And
absolutely need to get rid of just
a
as
state
much.
senator who is one of the prime sponsors of
absolutely.
Pennsylvania's
Every anti-labor
right
bill.
to work.
Mm-hmm.
It's why. Again, our plea to the audience is complacency will not solve problems. Get on the internet. Read the paper, even though you don't agree with the content of the paper on a lot of occasions, but at least, or watch one of the programs to where there is commentary. There is, obviously, every now and then a pro and a con, but sitting back and not becoming involved in learning about what the issues are. I mean, that's our tragedy.
Well, the whole thing about a healthy democracy is you need to educate yourself on the issues and then vote what is going to be the things that you yourself believe in, you know, and what is best for you economically and so forth. But you have to take the time, A, to vote, and B, to research candidates before you vote. If you're going to be a real citizen in a democracy, you need to do those things.
And even if you don't want to do all that work yourself, maybe you could call one of us with some little tidbits of why should I vote against this person or for that person. You know, any way we can get the information out. I mean, I just think it's criminal that we don't know the issues. You can't very well fight a good battle if you don't know whom your enemy is. Sad fact.
Well, and everything that we present here, and all the panelists on here, everything is researchable. Everyone here has researched very easily the facts. And I think if people would just become a little more informed as to both sides of the coin, they might see the ills in the candidates that have inhabited the office for so long.
Even people who don't like to do that, about 60% of people have smartphones. Just push the button and say to Siri, what is Schuster's voting record? All you have to do is ask Siri that. And lo and behold, you get more information you care to know.
That's true.
And I do that so often.
Sure.
I mean, it's so easy to do. Just push it and hold it down, and then Siri says, can I help you?
Well, the biggest thing is what the battle has been fought is to get money out of politics. That's one of the biggest things right there, and that's a whole subject in itself.
That's exactly right.
You need to get the PAC money out of politics.
Okay, well, I guess we don't want to beat we'll beat a horse that we're not going to say is dead because, you know, it's limping along now, but that is that whole attitude toward government. One thing I wanted to say before we get into Tom's presentation, there's a lot of commentary about anger. People are angry. Well, there's a lot of psychological study that has been done that proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that when people do things that are based in anger, 70% of the times it turns out to be wrong. So if you're voting against or not voting, period, because you think they're all a bunch of crooks, or your vote doesn't count, and you're mad as heck about government, that's not going to solve the problem. Don't do things in anger. Look at the issues and say, I don't like what's happening. And if you think they are all a bunch of crooks, which I think is terrible to say, then find out about them.
Yeah.
But this business of doing things in anger is certainly non-productive at best. Now let's get down to something local here. The citizens of Altoona. So those of you who live in the county, you might want to at least listen with an ear here to what Tom's going to say about what the Altoona Study Commission put forth in a proposal that they're putting on the ballot on November the 4th. Should Altoona change its form of government?
Yeah, on the 4th, the Altoona residents will see a ballot question, Altoona Home Rule Referendum. Shall the Home Rule Charter contained in the report dated July 21st, the Government Study Commission prepared in accordance with Home Rule Charter and optional plans all be adopted by the City of Altoona, and it's a yes or no vote. Yes means you agree with it, and if the majority votes, it will become the say of the land, at least in Altoona, as of January. Now, there has been informational groups. The commissioners, Ted Beam and them, spent some time with the reassessment. We were fortunate enough to have Flaren, who came around to a couple of meetings, and they've been having informational meetings as to what's in the charter. And as such, recently, if you've driven around Altoona, there are a lot of yard signs showing up, vote no. And there's nothing on the signs as to who's behind it. It just says vote no, unlimited taxes. So the report itself is 23 pages long. And if you go to www.altoonacity.org, the whole report's in there. You can download it. You can look at it. But some of the high points are that we will become a city with a full-time mayor. Instead of the part-time mayor, he or she will be a paid position, and he will also become the 7th member of council who will have voting rights on the council. Now, what they're saying is that he will become the voice of the people to take to Harrisburg and to try and secure funding for the city of Altoona and to express the needs of the residents. And there's a lot of discussion as to why we have 4 representatives in Harrisburg and Washington that aren't doing a thing. Why do we need to send somebody else down there? That was just one of the questions. The second thing that was brought up is that the city council will now have the ability to abolish departments. That's another thing. They can look at the whole city budget and decide, yeah, we don't need the street sweeper, yeah, we don't need the fire department, and we can make it a volunteer. And the Altoona Mirror had an article in there, which I just happened to see, that they said even though that would be foolish, they would have nobody that would want to work for volunteer fire department. But they also say it's possible.
But on the other, there's another side to that, which is that this charter gives the ability for the citizens to have a real referendum process.
Except for taxes.
Well, except for taxes.
Except for taxes. Now, if you don't like the abolishment of the fire company, they did extend the amount of time that you can go get a referendum on the ballot to abolish the ordinance.
That's not something that's definitely happening.
That's just it. But what they're saying is how. They're just using an example. Yeah. But people do have the right. Anything that they make as an ordinance, they have a larger amount of time to get signatures to get it on the ballots. But we asked a question about taxes, and they said you can't referendum taxes, so they can decide. And people need to understand, once the third-class city goes, the caps go. And they're talking about shifting property taxes on to earned income tax. And I know we had a gentleman in one of our meetings that was quite upset about that. But the checks and balances, they're claiming this will make it better because the citizens will have a voice in what goes on.
Isn't the day-to-day operation of the city still going to be the total purview of the city manager?
Yeah, the city manager will have the day-to-day operation.
What is it that the mayor will do full-time that the part-time mayor now isn't doing?
If you read the article in the Altoona Mirror and what was in the handouts, they talk as if he's going to be an emissary to government.
So public relations,
lobbying, public relations, but I think also being able to address concerns of citizens in a way that maybe our mayor can't right now because, for example, he doesn't have an office in which to address concerns.
They did bring up, and I can see their point, that the part-time mayor, most of the people on city council and the mayor work or have businesses of their own, and they can't devote the time to the job. I agree we need a full-time person who is responsible to the voters, and speaking of that, he will also have term limits. He or she will have 3 terms, and that's it. They did put term limits on the mayor, 12 years of the mayor. And some of the council, they'll go to a 4-year.
Yeah, they're currently.
Yeah, and also if this does go through, the mayor will not currently be thrown out of office. The mayor will come at the end of his term.
Yeah, the mayor will become essentially a council member for the remainder of his term. Now, I think the thing that, and it can't be overstated, is that the new referendum that's proposed in the charter makes a referendum actually possible, because we have the ability to referendum now, but the petition signatures have to be signed in the city manager's office.
Let's explain what referendum means, because a lot of people, when they talk referendum, walk us through what does a referendum mean? How would somebody? What causes someone to
So let's say that the city council did decide to abolish the fire department.
Okay.
And they passed that at their meeting. We find out about it. We are not happy with that situation, and then what you can do is write up a petition, essentially, that would say, you know, we don't agree with this, we don't think that you should do this. I mean, and the charter sets out the guidelines for how you would write the petition, so that's all very, very simple. And then you have 45 days to get 1,000 signatures.
Okay.
Now, it doesn't take 45 days to get 1,000 signatures. If you have something, and certainly something as, you know, important and pressing as the fire department, you can absolutely get 1,000 signatures in a week. And then you present your petition, and the removal of the fire department gets put on hold, and then that goes to the ballot on the next election.
And that would be general or primary?
Whichever comes next.
Whichever comes the closest to the election to that?
Well, no, it would be the next general election, not the next primary, yeah. But the next general election, it would be on the ballot, and then the voters would get to decide, you know, do we want to keep the fire department, do we not?
And I was at one session in which the issue came up about a full-time mayor, and I asked what was the definition of full-time, and they said there is no definition. And I said, well, what if somebody decides to put in 2 hours a week, and that's it, because there's nothing in the code that says how long you have to work? He said, well, the people they can recall them then. So would that be a referendum too? If somebody thinks that the mayor isn't...
No, there's no recall elections provided for in this.
Well, I talked to a city councilman last night, and he said yes. I mean, I don't know all that, but my hair is on the city council.
You can absolutely vote him out, vote that person out the next time they're around. But I mean,
I raised that with the guy with my hair. He said no, you can impeach him.
I don't know about that.
Does anybody know what would what would be the major consequences for not voting yes on this? What will happen if it is voted out?
Well, see, no one's saying what the consequences.
Yeah, that is the thing, is that the consequences are so nebulous. You know, just essentially, if we don't vote for it, then it doesn't happen, and, you know, we're just where we are now. But, you know, we've been in this sort of waiting period so long, waiting for this Government Study Commission to do, you know, to bring us this charter. You know, I don't know what the next step is from there, and I don't think anybody's really concretely laid that out.
Well, this was 15 months. I mean, this whole thing was 15 months.
Yeah, absolutely.
But reassessment wasn't on the table then either. When they first started this commission, reassessment was being discussed.
That's true.
So now there's another thing they're saying, well, now wait a minute. Why they were saying about, well, what's reassessment going to do to the city finances?
Yeah.
You know, this is going to put money into the city finances just through reassessment. Then that's another thing that nobody knows.
So, and I think the question was very well put by one of you that, well, Marsha, you know, what are the consequences of saying no?
Right. Well, there is, I think the question was asked about the Act 47. There is no municipality in Act 47 the size of Altoona that has come out of it.
That's right.
And I think Richard said one borough over around Pittsburgh come out of Act 47, but no city the size of Altoona that is in Act 47 has come out. Every city that's in it is still in it.
But has anyone else taken this same tack that we are to change the form of government so that, and then is there a history
of... Allentown?
Allentown.
Several places have gone to home rule, and I mean, you know, and I think we've talked about this, you know, at some of the meetings, the idea that, you know, none of the third-class cities have come out of Act 47, and that's absolutely true. But I mean, that's, you know, we're past that point now. I mean, we're in it. It's happening. Like, there's no going back at this point. So I mean, what we have to look at is, you know, do we want this charter? If this charter doesn't pass, what are the consequences? And here, like we said, we still don't really truly know what the consequences of voting no are.
Well, I'm just suggesting, I'm not saying to vote for it or not vote for it. All I'm saying is just read what's in it and make a decision based on it.
And you can find it on the city council's website, on the city government's website.
It's www.altoonapa, all one word, .gov, pages home. And it has right on there the petition, the meeting minutes, and the synopsis.
Okay. And if you do vote no, What is the tax situation then?
See, I think let's take our last break, and then when we come back, let's just look at that tax thing, because I think it is nebulous right now, because it does remove the tax on the earned income.
Earned income, yeah.
But I think as far as property taxes, I don't understand if it removes, because reassessment will have an impact on
according to that.
So let's take our last break, and then when we come back, we'll finish up on 47, and I hope we can say something that's going to encourage people to vote for it to begin with.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
Every day, kids witness bullying. They want to help, but don't know how. Teach your kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
In the small town of Elmira, New York, a boy was born into an all-American family. The odds of him achieving his dream in the fashion industry? 1 in 23 million. The odds of having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 68. I am Tommy Hilfiger, and my family is affected by autism. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs.
My new mom and I have a lot in common. The great outside. We both love the outdoors. So shiny. That's not a flower. We both love geology. Oh, look. An igneous one. That's not a rock. And she knows a lot about wildlife. A labradoodle. That's not a dog. Hanging out has been kind of fun.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of kids in foster care will take you just as you are.
Meeting.
Okay, welcome back to Plain Speaking, and we're into a very significant issue right now for those who live in Altoona. And should you or should you not vote for Act 4, the new form of government, which will be on the ballot? And there are a lot of questions that we've raised among ourselves, and I'm sure the viewing public has the same concerns. But one of the big ones before break was, well, what about the tax structure? What does that mean? And I mentioned quickly about no cap on income tax, earned income tax, but the whole issue of property tax is up in the air because of reassessment. And I know the Democratic Committee had both the Act 47 and the reassessment folks representatives out to talk to you.
Really fantastic presentation.
So what's it look like from reassessment? What impact does the panel think that reassessment will have on this whole new charter?
Well, he pushed, Ted Beam in the program, he tried to explain that it has to be revenue neutral. When reassessment is done, no matter what your house is worth, the total amount of money the property taxes will generate at the new rate can't be any more than what they generate at the present rate. So that means they were looking at estimating a cap of around 5%. Yeah, which would mean the county and the city could not initially start out any higher than what it is. So that would push the cap significantly down in both cases. But they're saying that right off the bat, the question was raised, well, can't you just raise tax? And they said, well, don't be surprised that they will have to raise to cover the budget. By the time 2017 comes around, they'll have to raise taxes to cover the budget. So they can keep raising taxes, but it's just the cap's going to go back down to whatever the goods and services are, approximately 5%.
Well, yeah, what happens with the reassessment, and it is a sort of strange and confusing issue because we're talking about, mills and how many people know what mills are.
Places that throw smoke in the air.
But so right now, taxes in the county are pushing 30 mills, and that is, the cap is actually 25, and you can get a court order to go up to 30.
Right.
And so we're at a point right now where they have to ask the court every year to keep the taxes where they are. Now, once the county is reassessed, then the millage will go way back down to 5.
Yeah.
And then from there, they'll have some leeway. Now, are they going to raise it back up to 25? No, absolutely not. Yeah. But they are going to raise it some. And, as they've said, the sort of mantra of reassessment is 1/3 go up, 1/3 go down, and 1/3 stay the same. which is, I'm sure, the case. But, that will certainly have an effect on what happens with taxes in the city if we pass the Home Rule Charter, where, as has been said many times, the cap on taxes will go away. I honestly don't foresee taxes going up dramatically, but, who can say?
So, in other words, from the commentary I've heard, is that there has to be eventually an increase in taxes in order to maintain a reasonable level of services.
Yeah.
So for any candidate now in the future who's going to run for mayor, city council, county commissioner cannot say that I will not raise taxes, because it's already a foregone conclusion.
Yeah.
So make sure now we pay attention to that, because that's how candidates like to get reelected or elected. I will not raise taxes. They're all lying through their teeth, because they do. And the most reasonable thing to say is, I'll fight like the devil not to raise taxes, but if it means that you're going to lose some services, then I'm going to say to you, I'm only going to help raise taxes to protect you, instead of saying no new taxes or no raise taxes.
I think taxes have gotten a bad name, so to speak. I mean, the right has gone out of their way to demonize the term taxes. And I've said this before on this program. People need to look at what they're making instead of what they're paying in taxes. The real problem isn't that you're paying too much in taxes. The problem is you're not getting paid enough. That your wages need to go up, and the minimum wage needs to go up in order that you have more in your pocket. Because taxes pay for services that people need, especially in Blair County, whether you're talking about the county commissioners or the mayor. There isn't like this spending waste going on. People are getting bare bones services because of a lot of the population of Blair County has left. What kind of tax base do you have left? But you need things like fire departments in the city of Altoona, especially where you have old houses, old buildings, where, let's be honest, half of Altoona is a fire trap waiting to happen. And if you don't have a good fire department, at a minimum,
instantaneously responsive.
Right, you need an instantaneous response. You can't wait to have a volunteer fire company in the city of Altoona, because for the reasons I just said, things can get out of control easily. And that's just one example. You need police. You need fire. You need decent roads. You need these services. And everyone has to chip in a little bit in order for it to happen.
That's why the party of no, the Republicans, have been so destructive, because when I raised that issue about the governmental road program, instead of raising the taxes that are necessary to pay for the improvement on the roads and the bridges, they now want to diminish the retirement benefits of future employees in private industry, and to me that's a subterfuge. If you're going to repair roads and bridges, the people who use them, or the citizens, have to have them. Even if you don't drive, if the products you use are trucked in or come in by train or plane or what have you, you've got to be willing to pay for it.
Absolutely.
And that's what and you're right about taxes. I've said it for 1,000, well, not years, but I've said it for a long time. That taxes are a necessary ingredient of government. All we ask the people who raise or don't raise taxes is to do it in a responsible manner. If it means I'm going to lose something like good roads or good transportation or good schools, I'm willing to pay more.
Absolutely.
But quit telling me as I'm running for office and I won't raise your taxes. You want to see the buildings crumble? Everybody will end up transportation-wise with a jackass and a sled because cars won't be able to drive. So anyway, we need taxes.
We do, for certain basic services, and and as you said, Frank, done in a responsible manner. Everything is, if nothing is completely evil or completely good, But some things have to be done in a responsible manner, and taxes is one of them, for necessary services.
That's exactly right. Well, I think we've covered a lot of the issues that deal with the services to our local people. Reassessment we've heard a lot about, but again, the bottom line is most people will not know until the reassessment is done on their properties. And we can't sit here and say, now I've heard a third will be no change, a third will be up, and a third will be down. But which third are you in? You won't know that.
No.
So there is no general rule that says call so-and-so and he'll tell you whether your taxes are going to go up or not.
And you won't know to the end of next year.
That's right.
No,
So
and I mean, this
late
doesn't
2016.
take effect until
So it wouldn't be fair for us to say to people that reassessment is good or bad, but it's something that obviously has been an issue for some 50 years.
Well, yeah, it's absolutely
necessary to be done.
Right, because as you say, our last reassessment was in 1958.
Yeah.
You know, at which point, you know, the city of Altoona was a much more your property in the city of Altoona was much more valuable than, you know, surrounding properties in the townships. And now, oftentimes, the reverse is the case. And so, you know, the property taxes need to reflect the actual value of the, you know, properties.
That's right.
And, you know, we saw in that presentation where houses that were all worth $85,000 were paying vastly different levels of taxes, you know, from all the way down to $150 all the way up to $750.
Yeah.
Well, it was brought up about, especially in the inner city, what you were saying about fire traps. It was brought up as to Altoona has a lot of empty lots.
Yes.
That were in the 1958 tax that had houses on them. And it was presented, what about all these houses that were bought up? You know, hospital expansions, doctor's office expansions, you know, and it was brought up about, you know, you might see the city of Altoona might not look so good when it's all done, when they factor in how many properties are no longer income producing.
Because the base upon which to gain the money.
But now we were told on the bright side that Bon Secours is now a taxable property.
Yes.
It is no longer deemed a hospital.
Now we can find somebody to do something with it.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's take a moment. I know we haven't touched on anything national or international, but I think it's worthy of mentioning something about the horrible situations in the Middle East. They're now talking about the number of citizens who are supporting more troops on the ground from the United States into the Middle East has gone up from 31% to 42% now. And I think these are issues that I think that people have to be concerned about. What's the panel think?
Well, I think we're right back to taxes. You can't. Everybody, you know, has a lot of fear right now because of the Ebola virus and because of all this stuff going on in the Middle East. And the thing is there needs to be decisions made as to how much of an expenditure regarding the military do we want to make in the Mideast. I think that's a decision that needs to be made, and I think eventually maybe it will be done by elections, but you don't see a lot of the people that are going to be in this election that's coming up, the representatives. No one's really talking about this on the federal level, like, you know, Schuster or Atlanta Hartzog's seat. You know, you don't hear a lot of dialogue. Well, I'm going to vote for boots on the ground. Well, what's that going to cost?
When are we
going to
vote on it? Period.
Right.
They've left session. They're not even debating it at this point.
And they're blaming Obama for being wavering, but yet they don't have the guts to call Congress back and to make a vote yes or no. Bill Schuster should be standing up and saying, I either support or I don't support more boots on the ground.
Right.
But they're not doing that.
Well, I mean, if you look at, there was a Republican representative, and I can't remember his name, but there was a Republican representative who said, you know, look, we don't have to do anything about it. You know, if it goes well, we can say we wanted it, and if it doesn't go well, we can say we didn't want it.
Which is a real brave position, by the way. Yeah,
exactly.
It shows a lot of leadership in that regard.
It really does.
Yeah.
You know,
and that's the whole thing. I mean, how do we get responsible government? In other words, the Republican Party, the reckless Republican rhetoric, is destroying America because they're opposed to everything that impacts the wealthy and the people who make the money. And that idea that Reagan came out with, that you cut taxes, you're going to have the wealthy create jobs, is the greatest myth in the world. It never has worked, and it never will work. So we've got to do something. But why won't this Republican mindset come to realize that their economic policies are destructive, their foreign policies destructive, but yet they blame Obama?
Well, we're in a position now where when you go into the Middle East or any country to protect the citizens or to protect our interests, it used to be you did it for patriotism because it was our job to protect. Now you have the same people that are blaming Obama, saying, well, how much is this going to cost us? Well, why do you ask how much it's going to cost when it's our mission to do so? But it's just they do it when it suits them, when the party needs the Senate. Yeah. This is an election year, they want the Senate. So obviously they're going to look at what sounds good to the people who vote. And if it sounds like, well, we're not going to spend money, we shouldn't be there, no boots on the ground, they'll use that.
But why does America has to be the only country that puts boots on the ground?
Yeah.
Why aren't there Middle Eastern boots on the ground? Are there divisions of Saudi troops? Are there divisions of Iraqi troops?
There are Emirati Air Force pilots fighting.
That's the Air Force. I'm talking boots on the ground. Well, how many Saudis have a uniform and carrying an M1 who are out there shooting these other people?
I don't know. But I think that Middle Eastern countries are getting involved in a way that they haven't necessarily before. And, maybe it's not as much as we want, but I think it's a step in the right direction, minimally.
Well, with anything else, I know people are thinking we don't want to be another occupation force.
Sure, absolutely.
And that's what they're looking at. Okay, we're going to send 3,000 people over there as advisors. Well, get it in and get it done and get out. Let the people stand on their own, give them the resources.
Well, and this isn't the only reason, but this is one of the reasons the stock market is out of control right now, because there's this unknown quantity of what's going to really happen in the Mideast. Who's going to win out? Who's going to be really in control in these countries and so forth? And that makes the stock market volatile. So there's just all kinds of different problems that this is creating.
A lot of concern.
Now, of course, the latest is Ebola. Now, that's what upset the stock market yesterday.
And now they're blaming Obama because he's not doing enough to prevent Ebola.
Well, maybe if they hadn't cut the CDC budget.
They cut the CDC budget.
That's the issue. They cut money for the CDC.
Somebody has on is cut. And that's what I say. And it goes back to that same old issue, She should support that transportation bill by letting private industry screw the people out of retirement.
Well, and it comes back to that taxes aren't always bad. When your taxes are paying for a Center for Disease Control that can keep an Ebola outbreak from going throughout the entire United States, it might be worth 10 cents of your taxes.
Okay, we're down to 1 minute, and I know there's never enough time to really, truly get into some more significant issues, but I think what the panel will agree with me on, and that is that between now and November 4, please make an effort to commit to voting, because we don't have a lot of races in the Blair County area yet. We're looking forward to that in the future to get more, but we have a governor that has to be replaced. We need Tom Wolf as governor. We have a congressperson who has absolutely thumbed his nose at the average citizen of the 9th District. He should be replaced. Alana Hartsock is an outstanding candidate, and if we can try to arrange to have her in later in the month, we'll try to have another show before the election. But please, folks, exercise your right to vote. There are people who are dying in the streets all over the world to vote, and we're saying, what the heck, it doesn't matter. It does matter. So please vote, and with that in mind, vote Democratic, because we're the people who care. We are not reckless. We are caring, sharing, and giving. Thank you very much, and see you in a couple weeks.